Hello.
What's up?
Hello, Alvaro. We're seeing you twisted, but that's kind of funny if you don't mind.
You seeing what? What do you see?
We're seeing you twisted, but I don't mind. It's kind of fun if you like it, but we're seeing you sideways.
It could be an art. It could be an art project because
Yeah, yeah.
we on different ends of the globe anyway. So we not really even. It's all digital.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I like it. It's like a metaphor of seeing things from a different perspective or something.
Word, word.
Yes, absolutely. So thank you so much for joining us. I don't know if you want to tell our audience a little bit. You're in London now. How are you doing? How are you dealing with this quarantine pandemic? Terrible times.
Um, how am I doing? I'm chilling right now. I'm a
Good,
little bit, but
good.
let's see. Um, I'm, all considering, I'm okay, but I definitely like something I've been thinking about a lot is um like the state of New York and
Hmm.
really just like um I mean, and I hate to like start off so deep or dark or whatever, but I really um it's like a big alarm in me, and I feel like it should be even more bigger alarm in that
Hmm.
we have like a lot of people who can't afford rent right now, and a
Hmm.
lot of people who can't like provide for their family.
Hmm.
And I think we have a lot of leadership that ain't really trying to um, um, that are playing like weird games with people's lives, and I really
Absolutely.
feel really disheartened a lot of times, but I also feel like maybe hopefully, you know, communities they always get together and we gonna do what we need to survive. But I definitely feel like a
Yeah.
lot of people in New York is just like they just waiting for the like foot to drop off, and so I definitely but all considering, I'm okay. You know what I mean? And I think about them all the time. I think about like what's happening out there all the time.
That's important that you're highlighting it. We're also at a point in which reports are coming up in the news about how New York is in this very strange moment in which like the rent payability is super low because people cannot pay the rent, and at the same time, the vacancies in the city are super high because a lot of people had just left the city for their, I mean, in the best case scenario, for those who can, for their summer holiday or for some sort of holidays, or they're just leaving the city because they cannot pay. And then it really highlights like real estate issues and how, the cost of living in New York and how terrible it is for communities who are working and making the city run. So yeah, you're
You
absolutely
know,
right.
yeah, I mean, the fact of the matter is New York City should have never been that expensive, and housing really is a right. I think about it all the time. Like, I used to have friends who used to say to me, like, "Yo, housing is a right," and I feel it. I feel it personally. Like, people deserve a home, but I
Hmm.
just think how we structured housing in New York City is just like super super problematic because it's all based on like you got to keep most of New York City's income comes from property value, so they got to keep it up. They got to keep it
Hmm.
high because and I think we really got to like maybe reimagine what property and ownership and like
Hmm.
all of it looks like because it's not working right now. Where you got a lot of people homeless, especially
Hmm.
a lot of people like I think the New York Times reported like a couple months ago or a month ago, like 25% in New York City haven't paid rent since March, right?
Yep.
And I think about that all the time. I'm like a quarter of the city hasn't paid rent since March. So that means a quarter of the city ready to be evicted at any moment. Like that
Hmm.
shit don't really make any sense to me that you got a quarter of the city, 25% of the city about to be evicted in the middle of fall and nobody really like saying anything. And that to me is weird. So that's kind of where I'm at. Like I'm really like, damn, because that's family, that's friends, that's where I grew up, that's my heart.
Hmm.
Like that's and and I just kind of feel like maybe, and I think maybe even like the small people listening, if that's what they get from it, is that like I think maybe a consciousness maybe come up out of it. Like I think actually this is what I was thinking. I think our generation is inheriting a lot of stuff from the older generation. A lot of generation who signed up for a lot of these policies and practices, and I think our generation is reaping the consequence, whether it's like student loan debt or like fucked up housing situations. And I think our generation about to be like we've known that these things are problematic for a very long time, and especially the youth, especially like I teach and I see the energy in the 17-year-old, 18-year-old, 20-year-old kids' eyes, and them they not accepting a lot of the nonsense that our generation, the generation above us, like
Mm-hmm.
fed us. And I'm really optimistic because I think they're going to be a period where it's going to be like they're going to really like. And I think we about to see a lot of things falling apart, but I think a lot of the kids is really going to be pushing amazing art, amazing truths, like amazing things. They just going to be like, nah, fuck this system, fuck all these problematic solutions that you gave us, and we about to really be in a revolutionary, creative, like
Mm-hmm.
energy wave, and I really feel excited about it.
I hope you're
I mean,
right. I'm optimistic also. I hope you're right. I think this crisis is also like accelerating a process that, happened before COVID with regards to what you're saying. And COVID is making people, more rebellious. I mean, because it was really proven that the system is not made to protect them. So yeah, absolutely. So
I
I
mean,
like
look,
your optimistic note.
yeah, look at how many people was out in the streets for like
Hmm.
the last couple months. I just think
Yeah.
like a lot of people is feeling like we about to. I really think we about to enter. Like we about to hit the wall of a lot of policies that like put us in a bad place, global warming, all of that. But I also think like the kids have been seeing that for a while, and the imagination is like about to explode. And
Hmm.
I'm really excited. Like I saw at the beginning of the year, I saw a shirt that said 2020, the year of hindsight, because it's like 2020 vision.
Hmm.
And I just think a lot of like what 2020 is telling us, a lot of us didn't want to accept it. But I think a lot of people are seeing it, and a lot of people are like, yeah, that those policies have been in place forever. Like these things, we've been headed in the natural consequence of these things forever. And I think it's really about like waking up, and I think we're really in like a new era of waking up. So I'm like, I mean, I'm sad, but I'm because a lot of people getting
Yeah.
hurt, but I'm also optimistic because I think like we've our generation needed to like pause all the
Hmm.
bad stuff that we had inherited, and every
Hmm.
generation got to do that. Like the generation two, like Malcolm X's generation and Martin and Asada Shakur and all of them, they generation inherited something and they had to like move forward, you know. So anyway, how are
Absolutely.
you, man? We got deep. How you feeling?
I'm feeling good. I mean, just to give some voice to the audience, we had Molo Chicago. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. To saying about how to reverse the effect of gentrification that now has fucked up the real estate worldwide. And I think Alvaro kind of responded to that. I think like community is probably the answer, and you said that word. If I'm allowed to answer on my end, but yeah, just wanted to read the question. But I mean, we're good. I mean, New York, here in New York. But very happy to also take this opportunity of having the institution closed and be able to share art and talk to a bunch of artists. I mean, get to meet people like you, and so we can start seeing some of your work. And I mean, you selected some of our projects. I'm gonna put some slides so we can start talking about it and some of your community projects also. Give me 1 second while I put the first slide. You started with a quote, and I don't know if you want to comment on that.
Now I gotta turn. It says some artists will have one big. Oh yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
You want to comment on this, or you want to go straight to the art, whichever you prefer.
Um, so I was watching um, a conversation between a few artists. I think it was like Rasheed Johnson, Laura Owens.
Hmm.
Um, Damn, I'm blanking out on her name right now. She's such a good art. She's such a good painter. And she actually said this quote. But
Hmm.
they were talking about Frances Bacabia, and they said um, she said um, a lot of artists, some artists will have one big idea,
Hmm.
and like, which is a big thing. Like the idea of having a big idea is a big thing. But she said what Francis Baccabian knew about his art was that he was going to have that his big idea was that he was going to have many ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And when she said that, you know, it's something that I really felt about who I was as an artist. I feel like I have many ideas. And growing up in my community, growing up in Flatbush, growing up in, you know, in Grenada, a lot of my friends, we had many ideas, but we just never had the resources to actually make those good ideas work.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel fortunate enough that I've gotten to a place where um, there's uh, um, I know enough people who I trust, and we were able to network together and figure out how to make good ideas work.
Mm-hmm.
And so as an artist, it's just like, and this is what really the talk is going to be. It's just like, just me connecting with friends who have big ideas, and we just partnering together. And my entire artistic practice is just like me me listening to my friends and us just bouncing big ideas off of each other.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, a lot of the projects he's gonna be showing have to do with, collective practice. So we have a nice picture of you, which people probably already saw on our feed now. So we have this series of paintings. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about your painting, and I can start showing the slides one by one.
Um, yeah. Oh yeah. So that um so something that I do as an artist is or as a maker, as a painter, is that I'll like all my a lot of my ideas, like just talking about ideas, they
Mm-hmm.
come from like an observation or something that I think is weird or whatever. And I grew up like I was saying, I grew up in Flatbush, and there's a mural of Marcus Garvey next to a community garden. And I just thought, I wondered if Garvey loved flowers. So I went home and I made that watercolor, um, and I wrote Garvey loved flowers too. And then the entire practice was like, a train of thought was like, how do I make this painting feel, um, like, how do I really investigate what is held within this work? And um, and what you're going to follow up with as we go ahead on the other sides is me just really pulling apart
Mm-hmm.
that one image. And
Mm-hmm.
so that becomes like, that's the second image. By this time I was figuring out like, how do I try to repaint, how do I paint faces? And I didn't really know how to paint faces, so I just started to sew. And then also um, yeah, that's moving to a different surface, to burlap.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's the same image, just like tried a, like, and what you're seeing is like these three images, but there's maybe like 600 sketches
Mm-hmm.
between that to that. And this is just an example of it. It's just like these little
Mm-hmm.
cards are just even gesture studies, because I was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh yeah, the stem, I should figure out how to paint the stem. So then I
Mm-hmm.
made like a gang of those just to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that
It's
made any
practicing
sense.
continuous.
I
No,
mean,
it does make sense, and it's interesting that through doing that, you're also, like kind of like partitioning and studying the historical figures through this formal study of his, the different features in the image you're trying to make, right?
yeah, I mean, the way I think about it, it's like
Mm-hmm.
with any craft, with anything that you do, it's like if you play basketball, you got to shoot 1,000 shots a day. Like, you can't tell me, you know what I mean? It's like, it's like I have friends who was trying to get into the NBA when they was a kid. I'm like, you can't tell me you're trying to get into the NBA and you ain't shoot 1,000 shots today. So for me, it's like, I can't say I'm trying to make a good painting if I make 1,000 drawings. Like, that don't
Mm-hmm.
even make any sense to me. So even
Mm-hmm.
that is just like, it's the same work, but it's just like studied 1,000 times. But I'm also not trying to make the same painting. I'm just trying to push myself forward. So that's
Mm-hmm.
all of those is just like the same painting, like really expanded. You know what I mean? You can't even really see it on the screen. Maybe one day in like a retrospective, I'll show like all of it or something.
That would be great. It's interesting. I'm gonna go back to the original. It's also interesting that you start, that the point of reference is a watercolor, which is, supposed to be this minor genre, this sketchy genre, but you turn this into all these different paintings and sewings. And actually, Abigail Lapen is asking about the importance of sewing in your practice. I don't know if you want to comment on that.
The point of what?
Oh, sewing.
Sewing in my practice?
Sewing, yeah, sorry.
Sewing?
Yeah, sorry, the pronunciation.
Yeah, I think I think there's a false hierarchy with painting, if I was to be honest. And growing up in Grenada, where my grandma from and my mama from, a lot of my aunts used to sew, and I remember like thinking like just remembering how artistic they were, and I mean they were really inventive. Like they knew how to put colors next to each other, how to like and there's a bunch of artists that's probably like really famous right now, but they make G's Benz, the G's Benz artists who do like quilts and stuff. And I think if you go to like places like in Ecuador, everybody like has done weaving, and weaving is something that I think is one of the most radically inventive art forms. People have been doing it forever, whether it's crocheting or whatever. It's such a integral part of our DNA. And I saw my aunt and them sewing, and I just thought they were making way more inventive sewing than I can make painting. And I just thought, like, let me try to sew, but I don't really know how to sew. So I just thought, let me try to bring something inventive to the craft of sewing. And that's where the weave comes from. I think if we look at like a lot of cultures and what they do like in terms of weaving, sewing, crocheting, all the various forms, fashion, all of it, it's just like incredibly inventive. I mean, incredibly inventive. I mean, this is a craft that every generation they've figured out like incredible advances. So I think I just started to sew because I really wanted to be part of that invention, because I feel like I don't really feel like I'm an inventive painter. I feel like I'm sort of like remixing a lot of I'm a student. Like you can see my library behind me. I'm like a real student of painting. So I feel like I'm remixing and a lot of different ideas, like a lot of my heroes, I'm like remixing, putting them together. But I think like my biggest inventions come from when I'm sewing.
I like how what you just said, and the fact that you did a show about the artists that you admire and that you try to copy from, which Julia Payton shows as a curator. I like how that connects with the idea of remixing and your practice regarding music, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But I also like how that connects with the quote you started with, which is about multiple ideas and sewing, a lot of textile has to do about that, connecting different patterns, connecting different fabrics, connecting different pieces. And it's also about remixing, right? Remixing techniques through generations. So I think there's something beautiful in how these metaphors connect and at the same time connect to your practice. But then maybe we can go see the next series. Sorry, Avi also asked, if you think that, sewing has a connection with the Caribbean archipelago. I mean, he talked about, how it was influenced by your family, but, do you feel that it has a metaphorical relation with the Caribbean? I think that's what I was trying to ask in the question.
A metaphorical connection with what?
With the idea of the Caribbean archipelago, and the different cultures in the Caribbean. I think that's where she's aiming with the question, but
I'm a little dyslexic, so I don't really.
No, don't worry. Let me read the question and we can interpret it as you want. But the question says, does sewing have a connection with the Caribbean archipelago?
Um, I mean, my folks are Caribbean, so I guess so. I mean, it's like all in. It's all in my blood and my DNA. So I feel
Mm-hmm.
like I mean, like a lot of things I'm not super versed on,
Mm-hmm.
um, but there's a lot of things in my blood
Mm-hmm.
because of the ancestors have given it to me. So
Mm-hmm.
I mean, sometimes I don't have to. Uh, academic reference points to be like, oh, boom, boom,
Exactly.
boom, boom, boom. But a lot of things is just carries in my blood that out. And then like sometimes like somebody will point it out to me and be like, oh, you know that? I'll be like, oh, I didn't even know that. That just was something that I like pulled out of somewhere deep inside of me. So
Mm-hmm.
probably.
Cool. Let's go to the next series. Again, this next series, I don't know if you want to tell a little bit about these, and I can start showing the individual paintings.
Yeah, that's those are paintings from a show at Sadie Coles that I did last year in New York. I got like
Mm-hmm.
a little one of the many ideas that I have is like the story of Marcus Garvey, but it's also really my story or like Caribbean folks influence on the rest of the world and the imagination of the rest of the world, the good and the bad, and people who form my own imagination. And it starts with Garvey, but this one of the things that I thought like about art was like, what can painting do?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember an interview with Laura Owens, who's like one of my favorite painters, but she was talking about like, anyway, it's maybe a long story, but one of the
Okay.
things that I thought like paintings could do is like paintings could tell stories, and like paintings can be narrative, and I thought, why don't I do a show that tells the story of my mom leaving my dad, getting with my stepdad, and having and giving birth to my brother Alex, who's like my favorite person in life.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is like but it's all told through like nature and the hibiscus flower and trees.
Mm-hmm.
So the yellow's my dad, the red is my stepdad,
Mm-hmm.
my brother's father, and that's like her leaving the green strip in the middle is like a is like two roads. It's like a
Wow.
road straight in the middle. So she leaves my dad, and then she goes to my stepdad,
Mm-hmm.
and then
Cool.
that's my stepdad. He's the hibiscus. He's the red now, and so it's like it's the moment of pregnant of her getting pregnant. So it's like the
Mm-hmm.
stem is actually the penis, and then the yellow is actually the cum, and it's like going into the vagina, but it's like intestines and like branches become leaves and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then if you see the green, it's actually painted behind because it's burlap. So it's sort of the weaves are open.
Oh, nice.
So what's up?
Oh, that's nice. So it's painted on the back of the painting.
It's painted on the back, yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
like there's things, and the some is painted in between, but the green is painted on the back. And so the next painting actually is if you go to the next one,
Mm-hmm.
so now you're on the other side. So now you're on the inside. So you go from the
Nice.
what was the back of that painting, and then the next following painting is now you're on the inside. So you see you see the semen making their way into the egg, and then on top you see like a yellow. The yellow has like is like there's a yellow and brown like thing, and that's like a Ghanaian fertility like symbol that I just sort
Mm-hmm.
of really reduced. And it's actually at the Met, but it's like one of those fertility sculptures. So I like kind of plugged that in a little bit, but it's like the journey of the sperm into the egg and the fertility and all of that.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
And that's the next painting, and that's the semen making your way into the egg or into the tubes, into like whatever, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And now, like yeah. So that next painting is like uh the egg and then the woman being pregnant on the
Mm-hmm.
outside. So you kind of see both on the same canvas. So it's
And then,
inside and out.
and then your mom takes protagonism of the paintings, right?
Yeah, so these next paintings is like tree. It's actually when I moved up from Grenada, I used to have a big problem saying the word three and tree. Like it, I
Mm-hmm.
just I couldn't like, because Grenada was like it's like Spanish, the H is silent. So I used to
Mm-hmm.
say tree trimesters, tree, and I couldn't say three. And so this painting is called Three Trimesters, which is like three, the
Yeah.
three trimesters or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually a tree and a tree. It's like a play. It's like a double entendre.
Yeah, it's kind of beautiful that you painted your mom as a tree also. There's something about some grounding there that is, I mean, especially when you're depicting her pregnant, right?
Yeah, I mean, growing up, like my mom was as solid as it could be. Like
Mm-hmm.
she was solid. She was a solid person. And a lot of black women are just solid people, and like they really grounded. And Garvey, Marcus Garvey's famous quote is like the most famous quote that he's attributed is like it said, "A tree without its roots is bound to fall." So that's
Mm-hmm.
why I decided to make her a tree, because she my roots. She my brother. She my soul. So like
Mm-hmm.
it's like, oh, let me make her a tree and ground it, but she growing into a pregnant tree. So that's a third tree, and that's her, like her belly being really fully formed.
How old were you when your mom had your brother? I mean, do you
10.
remember that? 10, so you really remember it. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's great. This is really beautiful. And what about this is the last one in the series? Mm.
And it's the last one. So she transforms from a tree, and then you kind of see it, but she's transforming from a tree to a spider. And then the
Mm-hmm.
next versions of these paintings is the story of Anansi the spider, which is like stories I used to hear as a little kid. And Anansi was like a kind of trickster, and we got those stories coming out of Ghana and coming out of West Africa that was carried into the Caribbean. And so
Mm-hmm.
now it's like, now she's formed, but now it's like Anansi the spider, and like telling the story of like random, like the next body of art that I'm gonna make is Anansi stories, which I thought was uh like a weird kind of thing for me to go into, like creating new Anansi paintings, Anansi stories in like the 20th century. And people are doing it, but I just thought like, whoa, like I want to be part of that history. I want to plug into that.
That's great. That's great. Um, uh, I like also the retake on the idea of motherhood and spiders. I know that in that show that you did about artists like you included Louise Bourgeois, and you know how she did this series of like gigantic spiders. I mean, she's very famous for those, and those are called maman, which is mother. So some nice reference there also.
Yeah, I mean, Louis, actually, a lot of the references in this paintings come
Mm-hmm.
directly out of women artists,
Mm-hmm.
which is something that I thought was really important. Like, I thought it was important that if I was going to tell the story of a woman, that maybe
Mm-hmm.
as much as possible, I tell the story using like references to many women. So that actually is yeah, the spider also comes out of Anansi. If you go back to the moment of insemination, there's actually a
Mm-hmm.
reference to a Frida Kahlo painting. Um, if
In
you go
this
back,
one, no, sorry. So it's
uh,
this one.
that one, yeah. So
Sorry.
one of my favorite paintings in the world is this painting that Frida made of a cactus fruit
Mm,
going into it was like a metaphor. She had just lost a baby because
mm,
what was going on, and she did this cactus fruit, and it was really bloody on the sheets, and it was the baby being born, almost being pushed out of her womb into the heavens, into the sky. But she referenced it as a cactus fruit on a white plate, um, with
Show it.
hmm?
Let me show it to the people.
Oh, you know it. Oh, great.
No,
That
here I got it.
exactly. Boom. That's a,
Mm-hmm.
you know. Yeah, so you see, do you see it?
Yeah, it's beautiful. And it's great to sit side by side by your painting. This is a wonderful painting. I didn't knew it. I Googled it, honestly. It's really beautiful.
And then
Mm-hmm.
actually the intestines, actually the branches and stuff actually are Frida's like intestine drawings that she used to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's like some Helen Frankenthaler staining, which is sort of like the brown mark. So like Helen Frankenthaler used to like stain her canvas. So I actually just bleached the canvas in like
Mm-hmm.
the way that Frankenthaler used to like add color. I just thought I would like take away
Mm-hmm.
color. But there's like a lot more other
That's great. Mm-hmm. It's beautiful to sit next to it.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
glad you
So
that's one of my favorite paintings. And
it's a really strange painting. It's really amazing.
it's one of the greatest paintings of
Show
like,
it again.
we gotta show it
Yeah.
again. We could even take my
Yes.
work off. Yeah, yeah. It's like, yeah, I might get that tattooed on me real quick just because I love it so much.
It's really amazing. It's really special, and it doesn't look like a typical Frida Kahlo. I love that also it's also a still, and you know how this genre in Spanish is called like naturaleza muerta, which means like death, nature, you know.
Mm.
So there's something about, the process of loss also, even in the name of the genre of the naturaleza muerta. There's something melancholic about it every time we invoke it in Spanish. Mm.
Yeah, it's
Anyway,
amazing. Yeah, yeah. I'm glad you pulled that up. But it's that,
yes.
yeah, it's all embedded in there. But I thought like
Mhm,
you want to like throw like growing up in hip hop, you would like hear like we would like rappers sampled and remix things all the
mhm,
time, and the idea
mhm,
was just to make it your own voice. And
mhm.
so I thought like, yeah, let me just put in a little homage to Frida real quick, because I
That's
mean
great.
I think one of the problems, I think like honestly, Frida's equal is it's a challenge. I think because Frida's literally one of the most brilliant artists of the last 100 years, but she suffers from like the myth of Frida being bigger than
Absolutely.
her intelligence and as a painter. And I don't. It's a strange like thing because you completely miss like her brilliance and what maybe connect the intellectual circles that she hung around with who really
Yeah.
felt moved by her, what they were seeing. It wasn't really, they weren't really seeing that. I think obviously some of them were aware of the trauma and the pain, but they were really seeing her brilliance and her intelligence. And
Mhm.
she kind of suffers from like the myth of her pain becoming larger, and I understand why, because she's visibility is important and representation is important. But I think I think her genius often gets sort of undercut by that.
I agree. I agree. I totally agree with you. And there's some tricky aspects in representation on itself if you are not careful about the content. Totally. So talking about remakes and things, let's go to the next image. I don't know if you want to tell a little bit about this. Um, this
Um,
mural.
yeah, that's my cousin Fitz. Growing up, like I looked up to him. His mom and my mom were like besties, and
Hmm.
um, while when I went chasing to be an artist, he stayed locked into the family and really was there. And he one of the most stand up dudes. And we grew up in Caribbean culture. We grew up in soca music and all that. And he goes back home to St. Vincent all the time. And where my grandfather's from St. Vincent, but um he um I got a lot. I believe in the Caribbean a lot. I believe in like a lot of what the Caribbean has meant. And he really locked into that. I said, yo, cuz we got to do something. What you want to do? And he put out some ideas, and we ended up doing a concert. And then I made some drawings for a float out here. I locked into some people out here through some random like hit them up. This girl Nadia and this woman, and then they did me the big honor of like letting me put my paintings up on the float, and then we brought some musicians up from the Caribbean because we thought, you know, people out here, they work all day. They work all year round, and Notting Hill Carnival is like they're maybe one of the few times they get to really be reminded of back home.
Mm-hmm.
So we thought, like, I thought, man, you know, I know that hard work, and if it's like anything that I could do, I know what it meant to grow up in New York and see like Biggie perform and Rihanna perform and like Beanie Man and all these great musicians, Sean Paul, they performing on the trucks on our Labor Day, and that really gave us a sense of like pride and a sense of
Mm-hmm.
like, you know,
I
history
wanted to
being
ask you
formed.
about that, about your relationship. I mean, now with the Notting Hill Carnival, but also with the Labor Day Parade, which is, I lived in Crown Heights, and I think anybody who lives in New York knows how big it is. And when you were living in New York, you were in Flatbush, so very much part of that community. And uh, I mean, did you participated in the Labor Day parades, or I mean,
Yeah,
what
I
did
mean,
they
as a
mean to
kid, we
you?
went every year. Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
As a kid, we went every year. It was just like, you know, it was like right before school started. So it was like you got your last bit of summer on that day. But it was
Yeah.
also like what took me a long time to realize when I was traveling through Latin America,
Hmm.
it was really interesting because I like backpack. And I was born in Caracas, so technically but anyway, so I was backpacking through Latin America, and a lot of people were like, and this was post Obama, which,
Hmm.
anyway, uh,
Oh, yeah, we
um,
can talk about it.
you know, I think like I'm a huge fan of like, I think I always tell people like the complicated nuance of it is like, Obama say like, I'm able to exist because Obama existed. Like he gave me a
Hmm.
lot of, freedom to exist as a black person in the world, to walk into spaces that the image of black people were very like in their mind. They're like, oh, that's a black person. I remember I was in Merida and like a woman called the cops on me because I was in a neighborhood that she thought I shouldn't be in,
Hmm.
and then post Obama, I would walk through neighborhoods, and people would go like really rich neighborhoods in Latin America, and they go Obama, Obama, and so like I got to travel because in their imagination, Obama, you
Yeah.
know, but I have very leftist politics. I don't believe in war. And I think anybody who pushes for war, Libya, whatever,
Hmm.
I can't necessarily agree with them. I don't believe in deportation. And I was like in Mexico and watched when Obama was deporting millions and millions of people at the, you know, at people at the border um, who was watching these kids in cages way before Trump put people in cages. Obama was deporting a lot of people, and I just thought he's a center right politician, and I'm not a far left person, but I am a left person. I believe in like I think global warming is a big thing, and you know he was for fracking, he was for drilling like pipelines from Alaska to the middle, like to the middle of wherever in America, and these things contribute to global warming. And
Yeah.
and being from the Caribbean, you know, every year the storms are stronger. You know,
Yeah.
being in New York, this you know, I lived through Sandy, so
Yeah.
I don't think you could like say, oh, I'm for fracking. I mean, I'm for global warming, and then be for fracking. That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't add up.
Hmm.
You know, but I understand that he in his mind understood that America needed energy independence, and this was a key to get energy independence. But I thought, like, if you believe in global warming, then you wouldn't rely on fracking. You would push towards a green energy. So it's a complicated nuance in that I know that I get to have this freedom because Obama existed, but also I don't necessarily agree with a lot of the policies that he pushed as a president.
But it's interesting because it touched upon the same thing that you were saying about Frida and the importance, but the importance of representation, but also the tricky aspects that representation can take, right? In which, you know, you're only looking at the image and you're not looking at the content behind the representation image. So I think it's important, you know, as a good reminder. But anyway, I want to make sure we show a little bit more work also. So let's go to this one. I can show the detailed images in a second, but going back to Garvey.
Yeah. So in a couple weeks, we launching a website. That's for one of the projects that I have. One of the ideas of which is Garvey, and I think as a cultural producer, particularly as a painter, we're in this like capitalism sort of tends to reward a very like singular 1%, right? So like and all of the wealth tends to like gravitate upwards to this one group of people. If you're a painter, you tend to make a lot more money than like many of the arts and crafts. And so I think other arts of making, even though you're like you're directly inspired, and I mean my art is directly informed by my community, by my friends, by what I experience, and these things are formed within a community. So so I kind of feel like I owe, you know, like one of the things is like when you live in a nation state, you believe that, you know, you pay taxes arguably because the taxes provide for roads that everybody's going to use and all these sort of other services. And I think that I, as a cultural producer who's very privileged enough to make a couple dollars from my paintings and the work that I make, that I owe a cultural tax to everybody, to as many people putting in the labor to actually produce the culture that I'm inspired by. So I'm trying to figure out like how to, sorry, what's that?
What you just said is so important, you know, like a cultural tax. I feel like that's a tax many of us should pay.
Yeah, I mean,
anyway, keep going.
Yeah, so it's like really I'm just trying to figure out how to do that. And so in a couple weeks we launching I don't even like it's not even it's like a fund. Sadie Coles, gallery I work, one of the galleries I work with out here. We've decided to like, I was like, I have a painting. It's actually right over. I'm gonna just.
Oh, great.
That's it over there. But we're gonna 100% of the profit of the painting is gonna go towards launching three I don't know, award is the word, but it's not, 3 funds, and it's basically 30,000 pounds plus like 3 to 5K pounds in like travel and research, and it's for women of color with a strong emphasis on mothers, on economically disadvantaged people, who are fashion designers, to design costumes for next year's Notting Hill Carnival. We want to pay for them to get COVID testing, go down to the islands, research materials, find like the moms who are crocheting and making costumes, you know, and saying, yo, I'll work with you as a fashion designer to make some costumes for me, for Notting Hill. And then hopefully next year they'll have those costumes out on the floor. We're going to partner them with some of the trucks on the road, and yeah, hopefully they could start a little business, and then the money that they start, if it hits a certain percentage, they got to put it back into the fund, and then the fund will hopefully, if it
Continue.
grows, more and more fashion designers can then hire more and more. More, we can give the awards to more, the money to more and more people.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So let's talk about this one a little bit. Mm,
Um, oh yeah, so this is just a accumulation of a bunch of friends who are like, have been very blessed to have them in my life, to be inspired by what they do. Um, that's my boy Shamel. We went to LaGuardia up on the upper east side together, west side together, over in
mhm.
66, and he's one of the most brilliant dancers. I mean, his body is like incredible. It just does things that you couldn't even imagine. So I was very, 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 very fortunate to like have seen him perform and to beg them and said, please, can you do a performance for us out here in London? And he did one of his performances that he did in the bedroom over at this gallery, Emmeline in Shoreditch, that we do a lot of projects together. And they're one of the galleries who said, yeah, let's do some projects together for like till we get bored of each other. So, I mean, Shamel is like undeniably one of the most incredible performers. And I mean, and I'm very fortunate to have him as a friend.
Amazing.
And that's one of the drawings that I did of his performance.
Hmm. This is wonderful. I hope I'm showing this in the right order. I'm not sure.
This is another friend of mine, G, who I went to grad school with, and she did a performance with her mom. And the intimacy of her and her mom um, it's really incredible. And it's just them like there's a there's something really magnificent and beautiful about their community, their communication in the community. And this is all at Emmeline, these performances. And yeah, it was just really, I mean, yeah, I did this drawing to like advertise it, but yeah, she's both of them. It's a friend of mine, Eliza, who I met when I was living in Argentina, but she in Buenos Aires, but she happened to be I heard her speaking Spanish. I was like, that Spanish sound like gringo Spanish, because I know, because I speak gringo Spanish too. And she was really good at it. She was amazing, and we ended up like being friends and having like family, I mean friends of like people from way back, because when you're from New York, it's like 2 degrees of separation. And she's like does pottery. She runs like Henry Street Studio, and you guys should check out their Instagram page.
Okay.
Um, but we have I did these small drawings, and we got to pick it up more, but I would draw pots and she would make them. And this was last year when she bought some pots for me. But the idea is we're really gonna like kind of keep collaborating and hopefully invent like push some really, that's G performing. That's G over at
Sorry.
Emmeline over here in Shoreditch, over in London.
Sorry that I showed it in the wrong order, but
It's all
I
good.
want to. So here we have an next part of also your community. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about these.
Yeah, like I'm a huge fan of music, and I got friends who are really cool and do
Hmm.
great things musically. One of my home girls, Celeste, um, is the plug, and you know we was like, yeah, let's just do some parties together, and we had a mutual friend, Adam, foreigner. We was like, yeah, let's get him over here, and then she had a cuz, and I'm a big fan of Amaret, so I was like, Amaret, could you please like come DJ? I just want to see you perform. I just want to see you spin. And that's Amaret and Foreigner DJing. I mean, it was just so magical for me. It was just like I was like, what the fuck? Like I was like crushing out on both of them. I'm like, Stars in my eyes. That's actually the stars on the background right there. Those stars are like straight from my eyes to the wall.
I can imagine. I can imagine. And
That's a
this
little,
is a
yeah. I did
poster.
sound with NTS, but music is such a big part of my energy. It's like in my
Hmm.
soul in a deep way.
And we have a little bit more about this. So let's talk about this one. I love this image. Seems like a
Yeah,
chat.
so, um, that's Teresa. That's my sister. That's like my love. That's like, um, she's someone when I like decided to be an artist, really like made me feel at home in art. She's naturally an artist. She's like someone who like really inspires me, and we collaborate a lot. And she's probably like one of my main collaborators in terms of just painting. Um, but we do like she's just wild, man, and she just like I feel like she's one of those artists that the art world tends to like have gotten into this weird space where they value like, oh, you went to Harvard or Yale or whatever. And I think one of the things people really don't understand is that art is about culture, and art is about like who we are and how something can make us feel alive and feel
Hmm.
real. And going to fucking Colombia is not is like a very specific elitist group of people who could connect with that energy wave. And I'm in there, I went to Slade. I teach at a fancy university. Like I'm in that circle, but I just think that's such a small group of lived life reality.
Hmm.
And T is like in she an artist. I mean, she makes because she alive, and she wants to feel alive, and she wants to feel everything that she's feeling. And I see her, and I just want to catch up to her. I'm just trying to catch up to her, to be honest with you. Like,
Is that her Instagram handle? TUH Nesta is her Instagram.
yeah,
I'm gonna
yeah,
check out. Yeah, wonderful. Yes, somebody should put it in the chat. Thank you.
yeah.
Um,
That was a talk we did with Art Talk, Talk Art
nice.
with Russell, um, and I just
I love
I
that
have the three
podcast.
names that blank out. I don't know what the fuck. Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
ST.
tell us a
Sorry,
little bit about this. No problem.
that's the back of Emmeline.
Mhm.
In front of Emmeline, there's a jerk chicken truck. So like on the night of the opening of me and Teresa T and I show, we we asked homies. I was like, yo, we gotta serve some jerk chicken. Like, do y'all mind get? And so T had made that sign for like an ASAP Rocky video, and then she got it back, and then I like the dude. I was like, yo, that dude looked like a real skinny MAGA, like like just the skinny, like that. The roster looked like he's starving, man. Let me like. So I painted that chick in front of his face, like fat. It's actually in my office. It's one of my favorite paintings. I'm glad nobody bought it because then I had to get it back. I was like, yo, if somebody had bought it, it's one of those paintings that if somebody had bought, I would have been like upset. And I might have bought it like from them for way more, like 10 years down the line. So I ended up keeping that one, but it's like
That's
it's just a
amazing.
dude, it's just a roster looking at a jerk chicken. But they served it. We Island Pots, they made the jerk chicken on the night of the opening at Emmeline. That shit was great.
So we have 5 more minutes, and I want to make sure we go through this a little bit. Is this the show?
That's a show.
Mm-hmm. It's great.
That's one of T and I's paintings. It's called Please Aim Straight. And it's just
Mm-hmm.
like I think the thing with our collaboration is like, we just trying to make decisions that make the other person laugh. And that I don't expect her making. So like
Mm-hmm.
I'll give her something, and then like she'll do some shit to it that I'm like, how the fuck did you get here? Because we're so opposite. Like we're really like opposite, but we're like best friends, but we're opposite. Like we don't like where my mind is going and where her mind is going be like opposites as fuck. But then at the same time, when we really click, like we'll go to a gallery and we'll see the same thing. Like we'll notice the same bits in the artwork. We'll be like, yo, you see that leg right there? That leg. Oh, you see, oh, look at the edge of that painting. We just have the same eye. And I think mostly because I learned from her. But yeah, it's like so we did that collab. That's another one, man. The collective got that she a good person, but I was like, damn, I should have kept that one. But that was a good one. It's just like, it just was like empty frame, and I didn't know what to do, so I ripped it, and then T just started taking all these yellow strings and like wrapping it all over, and I said, yo, that shit looked like piss. Like it looked like somebody peeing or something. I don't know. And then there was like the stick in the middle, and then we just like I just thought we were in this building with like all these Hasidic Jewish folks, which is like interesting as fuck because they like refused to talk to her, but they would be cool with me. And in the men's toilet, there was this "Please aim straight" sign, and yeah, so I just kind of copied it and put it on it.
That's incredible. So they're gonna cut us. Instagram is gonna cut us in a few minutes, but I mean, I'm taking this as like the night of the opening. You want to comment a
Shout out
little
to
bit
Wild
about this
Yaks. That
one?
was Wild Yaks performing. Sorry to cut you off. Yeah, that was Wild Yaks.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, please. And do you want to say something? We have like 3 minutes to talk about this one and say goodbyes, but do you want to say a little bit about this one? So I can, I guess this one is a little bit about your inspiration. That's a bacon, right?
Yeah, that's Bacon. That's a painter, Zengi Chen, who's like one of my favorite painters. I think she's absolutely brilliant. That's just looking at a Bacon. But a lot of my art, a lot of the things that I do is just look at art and wonder, can I like steal from them? And then Julia Payne Jones, who work at ROPAC, one of the galleries I show with, is really like pushed me to do that show, and that's Julia right there. And we did a book, and we're gonna re-release the second version, Artists I Steal From. And then
it's beautiful. There's a beautiful video for anybody watching. If you want to see, there's a beautiful video they did about the show that is on YouTube that I saw. Yeah.
But it's just me. Please do if you're bored. But it's just me looking at artists, listening to them, and thinking about them, and then thinking like, what could I, you know.
It's really cool. I think it's a beautiful project, and I think there's something, about the remix. Instagram is gonna cut us in a minute and a half, but I think that's a good note to close also, like that project, that how you talk about the idea of remixing, sewing, patching, these metaphors of like bringing pieces together, which also talk about your interest in communicating, in the community and in bringing all this. I love that you brought, your friends and collaborators as images for the slides instead of just showing your own art. I thought it was very interesting. And I don't know if you want to say anything else. I mean, thank you for also talking about your fund. And I think it's very important that we all start paying a cultural tax with whatever we can, in whatever form we can.
Yeah, we a lot of people talk about spreading the wealth. And I think as artists too, we got to figure that out, and I think at some point I want to figure that even in the resale, that it goes right back to the culture,
That would
And
be fantastic.
so because we I think there's a lot of talks of liberalism in the art world, but then when it comes to the practice, we're actually much more conservative than actually like other spaces we're critical of. It's kind of weird.
So I'm gonna cut you there just because we're gonna get cut in 20 seconds. But thank you so much, Alvaro. This was a fantastic conversation. Too short, I think, and I wish it could have been in person. I hope we can do one in New York next year and that we can see your art soon.
Yeah, I'm coming back. I'm coming right back. Right back. I missed the shit out of New York.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you so much. Peace, everybody.